Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan Nelson. Welcome to Rooster AM. Today's guest is someone who brings both brains and belly laughs to the mic. He is a proud graduate of Oklahoma State University. He's been making crowds crack up from coast to coast with his sharp wit, larger than life storytelling, and he's got fearless honesty. Whether he's riffing on a real life awkwardness or spinning tales that toe between heartfelt and hilarious. This is the man. I don't know if you've seen him at a comedy club, if you've seen him on social media. If not, definitely check out his social media. Uh, you may even get lucky enough to see him working some new material on an open mic near you. But this is a man. I knew him in college. I knew him as a thespian actor. I thought really highly of him, thought he was one of the top notch students we had. I got to witness him doing Shakespeare, but today I get to witness him doing comedy, and he is doing a killer job. Welcome to the show, Jamie Campbell. Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I want to correct you real quick. I'm a proud OSU dropout. Um,
You dropped out.
well,
Okay.
yeah. Well, you know what happened is I was doing a semester kind of on loan to a college in Chicago while I was still an OSU student, and I started getting cast in Chicago. I was studying at the Second City, and when that happened, I decided not to go back to school, and that kind of launched my comedy career. I wouldn't have had that opportunity if it wasn't for everything that I got to do at Oklahoma State. But I never ended up going back to finish that master's program.
Really? Okay. So I graduated, I think before you dropped out. I just assumed you graduated.
Right? People
You
people
were,
do. They assumed the best in me. They assumed I would have finished what I started. But
but you're just a quitter. Oh,
that's
no,
it.
I'm
I'm a
kidding.
quitter. I'm a semester shy.
Hey, but you gave love to OSU. I saw that you gave love to Stillwater in one of your routines. I thought it was hilarious.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
the
the
Panera
uh,
bread
the
joke.
Panera bread joke. I heard that. I was that made me laugh out loud. I wasn't ready for that. So what is it that got you into comedy?
Well, I have always been somebody that loved comedy. As a little kid, I remember my dad had some cassette tapes of like old Eddie Murphy like routines and Cheech and Chong when I was a kid, and they were all very explicit, and I wasn't allowed to listen to them. But then when my dad was gone, I would sneak and listen to them and laugh at a lot of jokes that I didn't even get. But there was something about the rhythm of the joke that made me laugh. And also with a live comedy album, you're hearing the audience laugh in the background, so I knew it must be funny. And something about
Right.
that kind of hooked me in. And then I was in graduate school at Oklahoma State studying very serious theater, but I saw this sign on the bulletin board in the green room that advertised a full-time program at the Second City. I hadn't even heard of the Second City, well, maybe a little bit in passing, but I didn't really know about their history. And so I looked them up and discovered that so many of my heroes growing up, the people whose comedy influenced me and entertained me, got their start in that building. So on a whim, I
Mm,
applied to the program. I had to write a couple of essays, get some recommendations, and they treated it as a semester abroad, even though you're still in the United States, where you're studying full time at the Second City for a semester. And so I got in and I traveled to Chicago and I never looked back. I got to study with people who had worked on the SCTV series. I worked with Michael Gelman, who was Bill Murray's understudy when he was 22 years old. And the stories that these people were telling me about their lives and their careers, I couldn't believe I was so close to these people and this history of an art form that I loved and now I felt connected to. And so that kind of started everything. And I started auditioning and performing. And about a year after that is when I started doing stand-up comedy. And I remember the first moment of validation I ever had was Hannibal Buress, who went on to become a very big name in the stand-up world, was just about to leave Chicago. I think he had just done The Late Show with Craig Ferguson. And I wanted to congratulate him because he had just gotten a gig writing for Saturday Night Live. And I was actually, no, I think he had just started writing and he came back to visit briefly. And so I went up to him just to say congratulations. And, I admire him. And I was like, I know you probably don't know me, but I've been on a couple of open mics that you showed up at. And he looked at me and he goes, "Shut up. You're Jamie Campbell. You're hilarious." And I was like, what is happening? And so that was like some of that first encouragement.
Encouragement goes a long way.
It does. It really does. And I try to make sure that I'm doing that as much as possible, paying that kind of stuff forward to young comics and performers, trying to give them that positivity. Because I also, like, when I started as an actor, a lot of times I would have teachers or instructors or directors that had a chip on their shoulder, and their method of making you better was to kind of berate you and cut you down and then rebuild you. And that never worked for me. I
Yeah.
like to focus on what people are doing right. Even if they're doing things that aren't working, I try to find something that is working, because once you start to encourage that, then they focus on doing more of that, and things start to grow for them in a way that wouldn't happen if you didn't find a way to inject some confidence right away.
Mhm. Yeah, when I went to Rose State College, I was doing theater there for a year or two. And it was like the encouragement level there was so high. It was so high that I believed I could walk on water. And it really did give me confidence. It made me bold. When I transitioned to OSU, when I got over there, it was kind of the a little bit of the opposite. It was
Yeah.
like, who do you think you are? And you need to do this better. And you'll never make it with that Okie accent. Well, guys, I've already been in a movie. So
Yeah.
I don't, like I've done some incredible fighting across, but it was something that I always thought that maybe it's a personality thing because we've saw a lot of people that we went to school with during our time have done amazing
Oh,
things.
yeah. And
Like
that works for
that
some people.
class, that class was amazing. And for some people in that class, it worked and they took off. I mean, I don't know, it's a Liz that's in The Chosen. Have you seen The
Yeah.
Chosen?
Yeah. Liz
My
played
goodness.
Portia across from me in Julie. I got a fun Liz Tabish story.
Really,
So,
I do too. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
do you remember so Liz that plays she plays Mary Magdalene, right? In The
Yeah, yeah,
Chosen.
yeah. In The Chosen.
She played my wife in Julius Caesar, but I got really sick during the production of that, and I even went to the hospital and I had a busted blood vessel in my lung, but the show
Oh,
must go on. And so I'm bleeding kind of through my nose. I had a terrible nosebleed during one of the performances, and I had shoved the day before, I had shoved like all sorts of cotton and things up my nose, but I thought I was good enough that I wasn't bleeding the next performance. It was a matinee, and I'm sitting down next to her, and she's supposed to give my character a kiss at the end of the scene. And I bring my finger up just to my nose because it started to feel like it was dripping. I'm thinking it's dripping like, other fluids, but I bring my finger down and I see my finger is covered in blood.
my
And I
goodness.
realize she's going to come up and like have my blood on her lips if she kisses me. So, so instead, I stand up right as I say the line before the kiss, and I nod to her and I exit to the wings because I'm not going to force her to kiss my blood if she doesn't see
Yeah.
it. That'd be a nightmare, to remember.
That's
And so I
scar
rush
her for
off,
life.
and she had this confused look on her face because I just completely left the scene. And so I walk off, clean that, and then walk back on and finish the scene.
That's a great story. Mine's not nearly as cool.
Yeah.
Mine was simply this. I was starting my like that little, I don't know if you remember the little Wham cards that we ran around and we were selling. I was selling the coupon cards that you could take in, and she saw it. I remember her looking up at me and she was like, "You're going to be one of those rich guys." I was like, what? She was like, golly, I can't believe you, because I was making more money than our professors at the time. And she
Really?
was just like, yeah, she was just like, I don't know how you're doing. I was like, well, you just got to think outside the box. And she was like a literal encouragement. I always looked at her as like this sweet, sweet girl
Yeah,
that was almost like it's because you never know who you're around. You never know what
it's
they're
the
going to
truth.
become. Because when I was sitting around her, I was thinking she's a B character in most show. Like she was kind of like me, a B character.
Yeah.
You'd have the lead, and then you'd have like the secondary character, the supporting. No, she kills it. Like I don't know if anyone's not seen that first episode of The Chosen, the very first one. where she
Yeah.
turns around when Jesus calls her name. Oh my goodness. I was in a room with a church and tears were just dropping out of their face. And it was
Wow.
like OSU right there.
Yeah, to me,
Pretty
she has
cool.
she always had a gravity about her, some sort of an aura. She may not have always been playing a lead, but the moment she was in a scene, you couldn't take your eyes off of her. She had this gravity as a performer that you believed whatever she was doing and you were interested in watching it. The only other person I've ever seen that has that, I went to high school with Oscar Isaac. And
Yeah.
he had that as a teenager. You could not stop watching him when he was on stage. And then grew up to be a great guy. I reconnected with him several years ago in New York and still a great guy. And now suddenly, is in just about every major franchise, from X-Men to Star Wars, and is
Yeah.
just fantastic.
It's just wild though, because you see all this. I mean, in Oklahoma, of all the states, that little 3 year period
Yeah.
brought a lot of people out. So they did a good job recruiting or something. I don't know. But that was a good time. It was good watching you during that time too. I remember sitting back going, dang, he's got something. And I did not know it was comedy. And then when I started seeing this, I was like, wow, um, you're pretty dang funny.
Well,
You're
thanks.
pretty funny. And I will say, do you actually remember the first time you performed on stage?
The first time I performed on an actual stage, yes, it was in sixth grade. I actually I moved because there was a big custody battle between my mother and my father. It was heated. It was one of the most stressful times of my young life. I was in sixth grade, and then my father ended up winning the custody battle, and I went to South Florida, and I was at, believe it or not, Christa McAuliffe Middle School. And we were named after the Challenger explosion, the teacher that had gone into space. And our mascot was the Challengers, which I always found strange because that's the thing that killed her. Why
Yeah,
would we?
that's kind of dark.
That's
It's
like if
like,
you were the Abraham Lincoln High assassin's bullets. Like it makes no sense. Uh,
yeah.
but at that school, we had, it was the
Yeah.
first time that I ever had an elective, and I chose drama, and I was this shy kid. I was the new chubby kid, and I was just trying to avoid bullies and attention. But at some point in that class, I was this understated kid that nobody really paid any attention to, and then I got to read a poem out loud. And I remember standing up, and my teacher's face just kind of like her jaw dropped and her eyes went wide, and she was like, who are you? Who has been hiding this ability from
Mhm.
us? And from that point on, she started casting me in plays. And there was this night, she cast me in major roles in three different plays. I was the only kid that was in three plays in the same night. And I played different roles in each of them. In one of them, I remember I played a detective in this little mystery. They were all like one acts because, it's sixth grade. But I
Yeah.
was a detective, and she let me just kind of go for it, walking all around the stage with a magnifying glass. So other scenes were happening, and I'm just in the background, just eating up the scenery. And
Mhm.
that night, the head of the Dreyfus School of the Arts in West Palm Beach, Florida, this was a like an admittance only school, like that you had to audition to get into, and she recruited me to go there in high school, and I ended up not going there because my dad was like, "You're going to be an athlete," and that's not what I am as a career. I am a performing artist, so that was kind of a now and then I'll look back and go, "Oh, what could have been if I had gone through those classes?" But I think I was meant to go on the path that I'm on.
You were. I just from a spiritual standpoint on my side, I believe God ordains all things for a purpose, for a reason, and he walks you through it for that reason. And so you can never look back and say, what if? You're like,
Yeah.
thank God. Thank God you did not have me do this. Thank God I went in this direction. Thank God you did not graduate from Oklahoma State.
Right. Yeah. All the
You know,
I
yeah.
definitely believe everything that happens for a reason. There's so much beyond our control And if you let go of the need to control everything in your life and instead just focus on making choices with integrity, I believe you end up where you're supposed to be.
So it now let's go back. Now that we just said that, if you weren't a comedian, what do you think you would be doing?
Oh gosh, if I wasn't a comedian, I mean, because I'm a screenwriter and a screen actor. So if I wasn't doing any of that, I like to think that I would, I think I think I'd probably be a teacher. And I still do teach now and then. I'll teach improv classes or comedy classes, and I feel something special in those moments where you empower somebody to become more capable than they ever thought that they would be. I ran a training center in Chicago for a few years, and one of my favorite things used to be to sit inside the office, which was on the other side of the classroom, and on day one of like a level one class, you would hear this nervous energy and chatter from everybody as the class started. And then every week as the class would go on, just the energy of the room would change as people started to feel more capable. And I loved being on the other side of that wall working and just kind of hearing them as they discovered that they were capable of so much more than they realized.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's cool being a part of helping people go from point A to point B, and you're a part of it
Yeah, absolutely.
as a
I
part
think
of it. So
for me, comedy started taking a different turn in the last few years because I realized it's not about me. It's about that audience. It's about creating joy and connection for the people in that room. And that's more important than everybody in that room looking at me and going, isn't he great? Isn't he hilarious? If I go out instead of wanting to be adored and laughed at, instead, if I go out there with a purpose to make people laugh and make people feel joy and make it not about me, make it about them, then I get so much more satisfaction from performing.
oh, that's good advice. That's good advice for people to hear. That is my dog. Do you hear the dog?
I don't. Tell them to be louder.
I'm sitting here going, what the heck, doggy? Like they never bark. Someone must be here. It don't matter. You're more important. All right. Hey, it means the room's pretty soundproof. It's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Um, so do your friends and fam so this is something that I've kind of recently realized. My son, he's he's awesome. I love my kid, so I'm not ripping on him. But the other day he was like, "Yeah, so my friends they follow you on your podcast. They listen to you." I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "So I decided to finally follow." And I was like, "Well, that's pretty harsh, man. All your friends are following, but you're not." He goes, "I'll watch them when you're dead." I was
Oh,
like, "Oh my
whoa.
gosh!" Like I was like, "Dang, dude." So my question to you is, does your family and friends, do they all think you're funny, or is it like the prophet's not welcome in his hometown?
Oh, no, you know what? I think that they now I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. I think that they supported me for a long time, but I don't think that they were sure. But I feel like I've really grown in the last few years. Probably since I really coming out of the pandemic, a lot of my outlook and the type of comedy that I do changed. I used to
Mhm.
do a lot more cynical and I'd say probably a little bit dirtier comedy back when I first started. And I think a lot of people when they first start doing comedy, there's something about the idea that no one can tell you what you're allowed to say. And so you want to push those boundaries of saying things that maybe you shouldn't say, or maybe
Mm,
aren't necessarily appropriate, maybe wouldn't make your family proud. And so I went through a little bit of that phase. Also, therapy tremendously was a big help, just talking about everything that I'd gone through as a child. I had a lot of traumatic stuff going on. And letting go of those things, it's amazing how much forgiveness isn't just for the people you're forgiving, it's for you so that you can grow and move on. And I suddenly found myself happy around 2021 as the pandemic was coming out. Like uh, I met my wife, our life is good. And it made no sense for me to keep doing cynical material because it didn't ring true to who I was. So I threw all that stuff out and it kind of changed the way that I perform. And now I think my family comes to a show and they're like, "Yeah, we like what he's saying. Not only is it
hmm
funny, but we also like feel comfortable sharing what he has to say.
Yeah, we don't have to cover our faces when we go out in
Yes,
public. Oh man. Yeah,
exactly.
that's it's kind of a that's a good a good change, really, because that comedy
Absolutely.
lasts.
Yeah.
I what I've noticed that is that you'll take a subject that isn't really a big deal, um, but you're actually addressing a bigger problem. So, for instance, I know what you were talking about when you're talking about the pineapple on the pizza. I also know what you're talking about with the pockets, with the women. Don't women wish they had more pockets?
Yeah. Yeah. Women
They don't.
deserve it. It's such a small thing. So I have this bit where I talk about how, yeah, basically one thing that women really want that we haven't given them is pockets. And it's such a basic thing. And we laugh about the fact, and women go crazy in the audience usually because they do. They want pockets. That's a real thing that I'm talking about. And same thing when I have a bit where I talk about pineapple on pizza, and people get adamant about pineapple on pizza. They either love it or they hate it. There's very little in between there. And
That can hit so many issues in life. And I know
yeah,
people are like, oh, is he talking about like homosexuality? It could be talking about anything.
and I say at the very beginning, I say I
Yeah.
think you can
It's
tell a
like
lot about society by how we treat things that don't really affect us or hurt us in any way. And that's what it is. Literally any issue.
any issue. Yeah.
And it's about the idea
Mhm.
that people should be allowed. I believe people should be allowed to go towards their joy, to do whatever it is that makes them happy, as long as it doesn't get in the way of someone else finding what makes them happy. And that's all that is. A lot of times we want things to be the way they were maybe when we were younger. And if they're not exactly the same, we get upset, even though, like, we can still have all the stuff. People get mad at reboots. How dare they reboot this movie that was a big part of my childhood? You don't have to watch that reboot.
Watch it. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
ruining that version. You still have that
Mhm.
version. Nobody took it away from you. So
Mhm.
we,
Yeah.
we waste a lot of energy, I think, getting mad at things that don't actually affect us.
Yeah. I could see that you were trying to tell a message, but you were doing it in a funny way. And the pockets one really, I was like, there is a place where women are not represented the same as men
Yeah,
in certain parts of society. And one of those is pockets, and
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I get what you're saying. I mean,
And if we
you
can
just
take
brought it
that,
down to a simple level and made
yeah,
it funny.
because we can laugh about that, and we don't have to then sit there and go, who did you vote for? Who did you vote for? That's not what this is about.
Oh yeah,
This is
yeah.
about looking at humanity, laughing at where we are, and maybe down the line, some other subject might come up and you might think about it differently. But when I mention pockets, women, regardless of where they are on the political spectrum, they connect on that. And suddenly, in a world where we're all divided, this room is suddenly together. And that to me is the power that comedy has.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, and it's a place to escape, but you're still subtly teaching people truths in your comedy. Truths they need to understand because we do find ourselves in you're in my camp or not. It's like I was talking to the mayor a couple days ago, or maybe a week ago too, and he was talking about that. He said, there's you're either gonna believe what I believe and love me, or not believe and hate me, right? And it's like, why does it have to be that way? Why can't you just say, I don't agree with you, but I'm still gonna love you. I'm not gonna hate you,
Yeah,
but like there's like this literal hate that people have towards people. And it's like, man, and the truth is this: there are two truths in everything.
yeah,
There's an ultimate truth, but there's also two truths. If you grow up a certain way and you see something through a certain lens, and I grow up a different way and I see it through a different lens, guess what? That's two different truths that we're seeing.
yeah.
You can't discount the other.
Well,
You have to say, how can I see it through their shoes? And that's what you did with your comedy. You're like, how can you see it through their shoes, but in a funny way?
Well, I love people that are on both sides of the political spectrum, and knowing them as humans, I don't see hate coming from them, but they believe these very polar opposite things. And I have a hard time reconciling that because I know these people and I don't believe that they are walking through their day looking to hate these other people. But
Mm.
I believe that there are like these two echo chambers. It's almost like if the movie The Matrix, but there are two matrices, and some people live in one and some people live in the other, but then they walk on the same street, and they have these two different truths that they have been given. And some of that is actually true, and some of that is manipulation to maybe keep them scrolling. I don't know, but what I do know is we're not listening to each other, and we have so much more in common as humans than we realize. We've got more in
Yeah.
common than we do that separates us. And I think if we just start listening to each other and try to understand each other's experiences, that's when we'll find those bridges and that common ground. But if we just yell at each other, I don't know, I see people on both sides of the political spectrum that want to own the other side. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're just preaching to the choir and patting themselves on the back, but they're not actually affecting change or creating conversations.
Right. But that is what's really cool about comedy is
Eh,
because you can have those conversations and not get in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Well,
they try. Like Dave Chappelle, we're going to cancel you, and it ended up making him even bigger.
yeah,
It's
well,
like you
Dave
can
Chappelle
say things.
decided that he was going to when he knew exactly what he was doing when he started talking about those topics, and he knew that
Yeah.
it was going to rile people up. That was a calculated choice. He's a smart individual, and so he said, "I'm going to upset people in certain communities by
I
talking
think he
about topics in
actually
this way."
said that when he started the bit. He was
Yeah,
like, I'm about to piss people off,
yeah.
and it was like, well, there you go.
Yeah, and I tell
Um,
you what, it's easy to do that when you have hundreds of millions of dollars. When you have
all
that
right.
bank account, it's easy to go, I'm going to make you guys mad. And then while you're mad, I'm going to go sip Mai Tais on my private island. I don't think he has a private island level wealth, but
Right.
he doesn't have to worry. If nobody watched or listened to him again, the only thing that he wouldn't be getting is attention, but he has financially. Now, he worked for a lot of those resources over the years, but I think
Hmm.
it's different when you're somebody like, say, me. I'm not trying to cause a bunch of issues. I do want us to think and talk with each other, but like uh, I'm on the way up, and I'm trying financially to get to a bigger level as
Hmm.
a comedian where I have a bigger audience. So I found that creating connection is something that is going to help me grow and make me feel better. But I don't have that kind of money to flip the bird at my audience.
And why would you?
No, well, I absolutely
Why would you do like we have
no
so
way.
much in common to laugh about. Why
Yeah.
call out the stuff that is going to make someone mad? It is like so I'm a former pastor, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I don't feel offended at all when I go to a show and they start kind of ripping on Christianity because sometimes I'm like, they're actually making a lot of good points. You
Yeah.
know, like they're saying things that I wish I could say to people on Sunday. Like
Right.
they really are saying it. But I also can say there are times they say things and I'm like, man, oh, that kind of hurt, but at the end of the day, I know it's comedy. I'm smart enough to see that. It's cool that you're smart enough to see that because it's like you're going to cut a whole crowd of people that could actually love you if you attack them. Like attack
Yeah.
the wrong people and see what can happen. And it's awful. Like, but I don't see that in yours. I actually when I was now I didn't see your old stuff. I've only seen what you put out
Sure.
recently. And when I'm watching, I was like, it's smart comedy. It's not dumb. It's not attack. It's not filth. It's smart. You're saying, I'm identifying a problem, not even a problem. I'm identifying a situation and I'm going to make it funny and bring it to take something big, bring it down to small that everyone can identify with. And it makes it leaves you leave thinking about something, and you also sit there and say, he didn't come in here with an agenda. His agenda was, let's have a good time.
Yeah, well, I think that
That's
you can't forget the fact that comedy's about joy. And I think that there are a lot of people, and there's a market for comedy that's not about joy. Look at roast battles. Roast battles have
yeah.
become huge, and it's people just cutting each other down. And honestly, I can sit on the sides and watch a roast battle and laugh, but I have no desire to ever be part of that because just that energy doesn't vibrate right with me.
Mhm.
I want to be
Right.
in a room and have us all walk out feeling better than we did when we walked in. That's my mission. I believe comedy's about joy. At least my comedy should be. And I think that you have this power when you come in uh, to have an audience actually walk out feeling hopeful. And if you can do that, why wouldn't you? That's a gift.
Yes, that's yes. You're bringing joy to the world. Like you're literally doing, you're bringing real joy to people, not arguments on the car ride home. Like that I loved it. I thought you were great. So I'm just going to tell you, everybody watching, if you haven't, you need to go check it out. Is there any jokes that you really, really loved that you were like, this is the best thing I've ever written, but it bombed really bad?
Oh gosh, I bombed terribly um all over the place. You know what? I had this section. I'll talk about this section because I was preparing for my dry bar comedy special recording, which that hasn't been released yet. I'm hoping it'll be out later this year, but I haven't gotten the official release date. But this company called Dry Bar, they're actually the same Angel Studios that produces The Chosen, actually produces dry bar comedy. And they brought me out to do a special this year, and I was working on it. And I have this section where I just kind of I compare Planet Fitness to Walmart because it's sort of like the Walmart of gyms. And so when you
Right.
when you say that, that's a thesis statement, and so you have to back it up. And I was trying to find ways to make fun of Walmart without making people that shop at Walmart feel like I'm digging at them, because I shop at Walmart, but there is
Yeah.
also this stereotype of Walmart shoppers. But I perform all over the country for people of all economic classes. And to me, it's important that I'm not going in there and poking those people and going,
Mhm.
you're lower because you're a Walmart customer. No. So I wanted to make sure that I was finding a way to make that funny and then also comparing Planet Fitness to Walmart. And it was tanking the first few times I did it. And what I did is I had this thing that I had written and I went out and I performed it and it was just hitting crickets. I was trying it out at different open mics, but I knew that there was something to it. And I trusted my instinct. I was like, this isn't working, but the idea is good. And so I reworked it and reworked it and reworked it. And finally, about the fifth version of this suddenly hit. And I was like, okay, I'm glad I didn't give up on this. Because I was thinking about just cutting it from the special entirely. But then I brought it back in. And then essentially, without doing the bit, I talk about how in every single Walmart, if you look hard enough, you can find a package of raw chicken that somebody just left out on a shelf. And if you've been in
Mhm.
Walmarts, like you've seen this, where just somebody was in the food section and they just dropped it off. I don't know if they went over budget or something happened where they had to leave, but there's just chicken sitting out on a shelf at room temperature. And so then I compare the people at Planet Fitness that are out there because it's a judgment-free zone. Anybody's welcome. And they're sort of the human equivalent of a package of raw chicken that somebody's just left out on a shelf. And I realized when I was saying that it sounded like I'm being mean to Planet Fitness members. And I found just this small thing that I added, which was uh, that I made myself one of them. So I go like, you walk out there, that gym floor is packed with people who are the human equivalent of a package of raw chicken that's been left out at room temperature, and they're just trying to find their way back to the poultry section. I know because I'm one of them. The moment I
Yeah.
say that, anybody that feels like I was making fun of him goes, no, he's part of us. And
Yeah.
so there's a difference
Mhm.
between laughing with a group that you're part of and making fun of yourselves than making fun of that group. Because later
Right.
on, I talk about how, most gyms are full of people with sculpted bodies. They've got, huge arms, visible abs, a single chin. And then I go, not Planet Fitness. These are my people. And by connecting it, then I'm like, at Planet Fitness, we got lunch lady arms, muffin tops, and we take a selfie. We hold the camera up high. And that always hits. And it's because as I was going through this, I realized I have to be part of the group of people that I'm making fun of. If I'm not, then I'm punching down and I'm kind of alienating a certain group of people that might be in that audience. But the moment I say I'm one of you, and we are silly, there is some ridiculousness. We
Mm.
can make fun of ourselves. Then
Yeah.
we're laughing together rather than laughing like that mob mentality in cruelty over somebody else.
No, that's great. That's so good. That will be funny on. So when that you don't know when the special's coming out, the
I
dry
don't
bar.
know. I've seen
No.
it. They sent me the edit of it, and it looks great. I'm really excited to have it come out. I'm proud of how it turned out. It's all new material, separate from the other special, which the
Mm.
special before that, Big Dad Energy. I'm very excited. I just got a distribution deal with Laugh After Dark, their production company out of Las Vegas, and so it's going to be available across a lot of additional platforms, Apple TV. It's basically going to be free on their streaming service. They're creating an all stand-up comedy streaming service like Netflix, but it's just stand-up and other comedy
Mm.
stuff.
How do you handle the hecklers?
I don't get a
Or do you have
ton
any
of
canned?
hecklers. I don't have necessarily canned stuff. You know what I had a situation with a heckler back in the day. I used to, well, kind of the school that I came up with in Chicago was that if somebody is heckling you, you have to step into like a pair of military boots and become somebody that is at battle with them. And you've got to cut them down and destroy them before they can ruin your set. And I got where I was good at that. And I remember there was this show that I was doing, and there was this very drunk girl in the audience who just kept interrupting what I was saying. She had a thought about everything. And so I stopped and I just kind of railed on her and embarrassed her. And the audience cheered in this very gross mob mentality. It felt it didn't feel good to
Mm.
me on stage. It felt like I had just verbally slapped this person and was being cheered on. And after the show, I remember leaving and I saw her. She was sitting on the curb outside the venue just crying. And I felt terrible. And I realized in that moment, I never want my comedy to be used as a weapon again. I don't want
Mm.
it to hurt an individual. And so now when somebody kind of talks and interrupts the show, I actually I'll stop and I'll talk to them. I'll give them that attention. And usually I have found that it creates a special moment for the audience because instead of them combating me, we suddenly once again become on the same side. I'll befriend that audience member. We'll chat for a little bit. And I see that as a
Mm.
moment to make that show a little bit unique. That being said, I'm
Right.
usually in venues where I can directly talk to and address that person. It's not like I'm in a giant theater where somebody's all the way in the back. Um, I actually had one a couple of days ago. It wasn't like I wouldn't even say he's trying to be a mean heckler. He just there was this guy in the audience where I made a joke about my uh, like I was talking about having the sex talk with your kids, which actually it's a
Yeah.
bit that's in Big Dad Energy.
Mhm.
And this kid had questions about my wife. He's like, "Did she really say that?" And I had to stop because my entire show is about the fact that I don't have kids. And so I am having this
Yeah.
hypothetical scenario where I'm having the sex talk with my kids. And he's like, "Did she really say that?" Talking about my wife in this scenario. And I walked up to him, I was like, "Oh, buddy, I don't have children. I've said that many times. So this is a fictional child that I was talking to, which means that the wife in this scenario, the mother of the child, is also fictional. So none of this happened. So uh, she said it however she said it in your mind because it's fake. And we had just kind of a fun moment there. But like something in this audience member, he couldn't just wonder, he had to shout it out. And when that
Yeah.
happens, it's like, okay, cool. I said something that affected you so much that you had to blurt something out. That's kind of cool. So let's talk about it.
That's funny. I love that. Um, is there any venues or places that you're like, that was one weird place? Or what the weirdest venue and the best venue that you've ever?
All right. The weirdest venue I've ever performed at was at the Double Door in Chicago, but it wasn't just that it was the Double Door. It was a very strange scenario where I there was it was basically like a pro wrestling company was doing this event where they had like it was sort of a festival type atmosphere. So they had pro wrestling matches. They had, and this is a rock venue that like the Rolling Stones and Smashing Pumpkins have played at. But in the middle of this venue, they set up a wrestling ring. So there's a stage on one side, a wrestling ring on the other, and they had all sorts of acts. So there was pro wrestling, there were burlesque acts, there were freak show acts. I remember there's this guy like lifting cinder blocks with his nipples. It was very weird. And there were a few bands, and then there were like three stand-up comedians, myself included, and we were all just kind of performing for the night. And one of the main acts, the headliner of the wrestling section, was Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And this guy in the 80s was huge. He used to be Hulk Hogan's tag team partner. And I grew up as a kid, I was a huge WWF fan in that era. And so I watched this guy on WrestleManias. This guy was somebody that affected me as a kid, and I'm listening just kind of like a fly on the wall to him and the other wrestler that he's supposed to be going against as they're like planning the match. And they wanted the local wrestler to beat him, but by like using a chair behind the referee's back, so that
Mhm.
he beat him, but by nefarious means. And Brutus Beefcake is an old school dude, and he talked exactly like you imagine. He goes, "Well, let me ask you a question, brother. Is this match going to be on the YouTube?" And they're like, well, no, it's not going to be on YouTube, but we are streaming it. And he goes, oh, well, that's not going to work for me, brother. Because no offense, if I lose to this, and he looks to the other guy and he goes, guy over here, he's nobody knows who he is. I'm going to be a laughing stock. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, dude, everybody knows that like the outcomes are not real.
Real, yeah.
They're predetermined. But he couldn't handle it. And he also, this was like several hours before he wrestled. He's drinking beer, a lot of it. And I think he's probably on some painkillers. I don't know for sure, but just from the history of what I know about pro wrestlers, and this guy had been through a lot physically, he's going through a lot of pain. And so he gets more and more inebriated throughout the night. And eventually the guy he's supposed to wrestle decides he doesn't feel safe getting in the ring with this guy. And Brutus the Barber Beefcake's gimmick was he was a barber, so he would put you to sleep with a sleeper hold, and then when you were passed out, he would get out these garden shears
Yeah.
and give you the worst haircut in the world. So the promoter comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, we paid Brutus Beefcake a lot of money to be here. We have to have him do something in the ring, and this guy's refusing to wrestle him. So he doesn't have to do a match, but he's got to do something to leave the fans happy. Otherwise, we got to give refunds. So instead of stand up, what if you interrupted him on the microphone when he just like came out to talk to the audience, and then had him put you in a sleeper hold and give you a haircut?" And part of me is like, I'm watching this guy, he's slurring his words, and he is just getting more and more inebriated as the night goes on. And I'm being asked to let him take a sharp object to my head. I Part of me was like, that's a terrible idea. But the child inside me is like, dude,
Yes.
yes, you
I'm
have to
in.
do this. And
Yes.
so I did. I interrupted him, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you come over here and talk about it?" I was like, "No, not me. I don't want to have I don't have a problem with you, buddy. Just the audience wants to see you beat somebody up." And he's like, "Well, come over here. I want to talk to you." And I was like, "Well, I'm just a comedian." And so I step into the ring, and he didn't tell me he was going to throw punches at my face. And here's the thing, if I had known he was going to throw punches, I would have tried to do something to make them look good, and I would have made them look terrible. But
Mm.
in real life, when a fist the size of a football is coming at your face, you move your head back
Yeah.
instinctively. And so he threw about three of those, and my head just moved back every time naturally. And and then he puts me in the sleeper hold, and I know I've got to sell it like I'm fighting it off. So I start flailing my arms around, but I forgot to start falling asleep. And so he whispers in my ear, he goes, "You got to fall asleep sometime, brother." And so then I let him take me down. And then he gave me the haircut, and it was the most unique, strange, performance of my entire life. But I'll never forget it.
That's that is the one of the best stories I've ever heard.
It was
That is
so
so
cool. The next
it,
year, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
wow. There's no way that I could have ever said no to that. Like I grew up
Right?
watching wrestling like as a kid. I mean, seriously, if Stone Cold said, "Can I stun you?" I'd be
Oh
like,
yeah,
"No problem. Do it."
yeah, a hundred
Well, you
percent.
you want you need to sign the waivers. Won't sign a waiver. Just do what you got to do. This is
Yeah.
going to be a good time. That's
I tell you
awesome,
what,
dude.
as inebriated as that guy was, total pro in the ring. Never came close to hitting me. But that fist came to about right here. I could feel the wind from it. But he never did anything
Whew.
that came close to actually hurting me. He was gentle as can be.
That's so cool, dude. That is an awesome, awesome story. Is that in any of your bits?
I am working. I think it's going to be in my next solo hour, my next stand-up hour. I'm working on a show called Kinder Words that I'm going to be bringing to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival next year, and that will be probably my next special, unless somebody else brings me in to do a different one before then.
Wow. Is it? I know that at least from someone sitting outside watching the comedy world, it has to be the hardest of almost all entertainment. I I'm going to say this, and I could be wrong. I don't know percentages. I think it would be harder to be a successful comedian than it would be to be a successful actor.
I I think you're probably right. First off, every city has a comedy scene, and it's growing more and more because people can just put up a show at a bar if you got a microphone and a PA system. And now you're competing with anybody that has social media in the internet. The amount of content that is out there for somebody that wants to stream it, it's insane. But at the same time, you have the capability right now, more so than any other time in the history of the world, to get a worldwide audience from no matter where you are. So competition is higher, but the opportunities is also higher. I think it's rarer right now to just become a household style name. People find niches now. And if you can grow and find whatever your niche is, then you have an opportunity to be tremendously successful. But because there is so much media out there to consume, people outside of that niche may have no clue who you are. And it's really interesting. I think the hard part about stand up is the mental health aspect of it because if people reject your stand up, a lot of times they're rejecting you as a human. If I go in there as an actor and somebody rejects the audition that I do, they didn't like how I played pretend. But that wasn't me. That was me portraying someone or something else. And also, a lot of times, if I'm auditioning as an actor, they, I wasn't tall enough to match up with the person that they cast as the role that would have been playing opposite me, or
You're not fitting the mold. It's not that you're bad, you're just not fitting the mold.
yeah, so there
Yeah.
are a lot of ways that I can make it where it's not personal, it's not about me. But as a stand-up, a lot of times, especially somebody who uses a lot of their own personal life in their material, if an audience isn't into it, it feels like a rejection of you as a human. And I tell you what, I don't care how good you are. You're gonna have audiences and individuals that are not into what you're doing. So finding a way to go, that's okay. That wasn't who I was supposed to entertain. That's not my crowd. It's not my group. That's a challenge. And most comedians, we have a need to be validated. So if I have a room full of 1,000 people, 999 of them are doubled over in laughter, but there's one guy I see with a scowl on his face that's not having a good time. That guy is going to keep me up at night thinking about how I didn't
Wow.
entertain that one person. 999 people roaring with laughter, but it's the one that I didn't get that's gonna sit with me. And for me, I've had to compartmentalize that and also try to realize that every time a door is closed to me, it's because I'm being guided onto a path to go where I'm supposed to be.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it was, preordained that that door would not be open to me because that's taking me off the path of where I'm supposed to go. And I have to believe that. Otherwise, I'll go mad.
Yeah, that's called that's literally biblical. Just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but that's biblical. That's it's an ordained thing. And God will open and close doors on purpose. He will slam the greatest door in your life in your face, and you think, God, I hate you right now, to find out that nope, there was another door that was so much better.
It's so what
Um,
I always think of when I put myself out there now, when I submit my material to agencies, to venues, to different bookings, the festivals. Um, I think about it as I'm jiggling doors just to see if they're unlocked. And if it's locked, then I move on because I'm not supposed to go in there.
what's the greatest misconception of comedy?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I've fully figured that out yet. I think people think that it's not work. I think I think that when you do stand up
Mhm.
well, it feels like you're just showing up and we're hanging out and I'm just like the life of the party. And I think people don't realize how much work it is to write and to rehearse. And I think a lot of comedians coming up because we don't talk about our process a lot and every individual stand up kind of figures out what works for them and what doesn't. And because
Mhm.
of that, like usually as an actor, you get in this space that it's like you get your lines, you rehearse them, and then if the director, like for me, if I'm doing on camera work, like we might do a blocking rehearsal where we go through everything. But then you learn your lines, you work out things with other people. If it's a theater, you're actually having a rehearsal process before you put this up on stage. And a lot of people, they talk about their process and what they do. But with stand-ups, I think a lot of people think you just show up, you kind of thought about some stuff that might be funny beforehand. And maybe you wrote it down and thought about it, but like it just stays in your head and then you get up and do it. And then if it goes poorly for somebody that's just trying it out, a lot of times they're like, well, how come I wasn't immediately and instantly funny? I must be terrible at this. It's like, no, there's a lot of work that goes into it to get good. You do need the repetition of getting on stage, but also you need to rehearse. I rehearse at home on my feet, my material. It's kind of ridiculous. I'll set up my dog's toys so that I have eyeballs looking at me and because it's
Fun.
different to rehearse stand up than it is to rehearse a piece of theater or a monologue or anything like that, because you're going to be performing it for a live group of people and there is no fourth wall. You're directly looking at and engaging with that audience. And so when I practice, I like to practice looking into sets of eyes. And the nice thing about my dog toys is they're dead behind the eyes. There's no emotion or life to them. So that's great practice for the worst of audiences. But
Yeah.
I think that rehearsal practice, going back and rewriting things, it takes a lot of work to do that. And I think a big misconception that a lot of people that are just fans of comedy uh, have is that they don't realize all of the hours of work that happen when a person's not on stage.
Hmm. Yeah. I can't imagine. Like, I don't find myself as a funny person. Like, people say, "Oh, you're fun. You say funny things," but I'm not like the person that can come in and say, "You could give me the same joke." And what I think is the real talent, first, it's the hard work, like writing material. I can't imagine writing material for comedy. I don't know how you're sitting there going, "This is going to play well." Like, how do you know? Like, I guess you just know when you try
You
it, and
you don't
it's
know
like,
because I can do a bit that crushes for one audience and then go in front of another audience and it just doesn't hit. Sometimes it's because the chemistry and the makeup of that audience is different. Sometimes it's because I
yeah.
didn't deliver it the same way, or sometimes my inflection on a word or something might hit differently. There are so many different factors that go into play every show. I wish that you could just control it, and once you had it, you just do it the same way, and it always hits. Um,
It was the guy who was the comedian. Oh, he does the roasting, really hard roasting.
Jeff
Um,
Ross.
no, he did the Trump rally. He
Oh
has the
gosh.
show.
Oh, Tony, Kill Tony, that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
Tony
Hilton.
Hinchcliffe.
So yeah, so that's what he did. He brought comedy to the wrong audience.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
what happened. That's exactly what happened. He brought something thinking it was funny that would have probably killed in five other places,
yeah.
but he brought it to the wrong audience and got just I mean, that dude got hammered for what
Well,
he said.
at the same time, though, like that's what he does. That's his comedy. They,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're booking a comedian, don't expect them not to be who they are and not to do the material that they do. The people that
Right.
booked him, that's who screwed up, if you ask me there. Because that's what he does. He comes out and he
Yeah.
offends people. And
That's his
his
whole gig.
audience, yeah, and his audience was not the people that were in the room, but the people that were watching. His audience that watched it was like, ah, that's what I wanted. But then most of the world was like, ah, how could you say that?
Yeah. How could you say that? Say that their country is a garbage dump.
Yeah, well,
It's like,
that's like if they hired Andrew Dice Clay and expected him to be
yeah,
clean and nice and
yeah, yeah.
friendly towards women. Like that's not who he
Mhm.
is, and that's not
That
what his
that is,
audience is.
you know what? That's hilarious. That should be a bit where I like invite Andrew Dice Clay to my church,
Oh gosh.
to come up and make him laugh and see what he comes up with. Like that would I mean talk about an audience that's just yeah, that's hilarious to think about. Yeah, for me, I always thought like one of the greatest misconceptions of comedy is that the people who are doing it are they're it's a natural talent. Like it's just a natural thing that you have. And it's like, well, Eddie Murphy Raw was just Eddie Murphy showing up one day and he's just a funny guy. And I'm like, there are two different types of I mean, there's some that are naturally good at timing, like they just have the perfect time. There are some that are technically good. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I have to
It's
rehearse
not
and I have to
it's
go through and polish and change my writing because if I don't, I'm not good. I'm not there. I I used to self-medicate a lot during my time in Chicago, and I think that was because I was battling a lot of anxiety and a lot of self-worth issues. And
mm,
now I don't have to deal with any of that. I've done the therapy, but anxiety still creeps in, and I still have to do a lot of work to be prepared so that if anxiety shows up, I'm still ready to do a good job despite any nerves that start kind of jolting through me. I have to be well hydrated. I have to be really awake. And I have to know my materials so well that I can go off on a tangent and be present with the audience and come right back to it without missing a beat. If I didn't
yeah.
rehearse, I would just get completely lost. I
Yeah, you
have to
got
do
it.
the
You
work.
almost have to treat it like a one act play.
Yeah. A one
Well,
act play
except
that
one
is
act.
going to have deviations.
Well, and that's going to be 2 hours. I don't an hour special. Like I don't even an hour. That's so much energy for that type of work. I don't know how you do it.
I mean,
That's
you do rehearse because you have to have a flow and a pace because it can't be the same energy the whole hour. It's got to change and go up and down. It's
mhm,
like making a mixtape. You don't want every song to have the same energy in your playlist. You want to
right,
vary in those energies and vibes so that you're going on a ride. If they were all the same, why wouldn't you just put one song on repeat?
right, yeah. Well, if there was a comedian right now today that you could open for, that you would just love to be like, I want to go open for this guy, who would that be?
Probably Jim
How?
Gaffigan.
Yeah, he's
Honestly,
funny.
I'm a
He's
nice,
fun.
I've turned into this very nice middle-aged man, and my audience, like I think that, if people ask me, what my strongest core belief is, that would be kindness. I think that's the answer to everything is being kind to each other. And I like his vibe. I used to be much more angry and cynical, and I would have said somebody probably more angry and more cynical. But these days, I really identify with Jim Gaffigan and all he I mean, it seems like his mission is just to create joy in that audience, and his comedy is something that's digestible for everybody, and you can go home feeling like you were in a giant room connected with people and laughing. And I feel like I would love to have an audience like he has.
So cool. The truth is there's so much, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying there's just too much of it. There's too much comedy that says, let's see how filthy we can be.
Sure.
And then there's the ones that see how much can we make people mad or
Right.
not mad or like shake the room. And it's like there's not enough where it's like in the middle where you can just say, I want to go have a good time and kindness. Man, when you said that, man, that filled my heart up when you said, I'm all about wanting kindness. Imagine if we had a legion of comedians who that what their focus was the change they could have for people in a room.
Yeah. I mean,
It, it's
I end up doing a lot of shows where I'm up later in the lineup, and the people that are opening for me are tremendously dirty. And I think that that's usually that happens when you're younger and you like comedy, but you don't really have anything to say. You don't have a message with your comedy at all. And so
mm,
shock value gets a laugh. It does the job for you. And then I have to come up in a room that feels pretty uncomfortable because when you go out and you talk about, say, graphic sexual things, what you're
mhm.
forcing the audience to do is imagine you doing those things. So you might as well come
Oh,
down, strip down, and just do the act in front of them. That's
mhm,
what you're making them do in their mind is imagine that. And so they feel audience members that are not there for the super dirty comedy when they get it, they feel a little bit violated and uncomfortable. And so if I go in to a room that has that, a lot of times what's happening is they're waiting for me to get dirty. They're bracing for it. And it takes a little while for them to realize that I may have some innuendo, but I'm not going to be super graphic. I've also learned that,
right.
as a middle-aged dude, like people don't want to hear about my sex life. I can talk about sex
Yeah.
as a concept, but they don't want to hear my own stories. They're like, oh, that should be private, dude. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
and they don't want to hear about me, partying. I'm 45. They're in their mind right away. They're like, oh, you should probably have it together by now. You know,
Yeah.
Uh,
But that goes with your bit when you met your wife or you were on the date.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, she was perfect. She was amazing. She was everything. And then I came to her and said, well,
Yeah, I don't have it together, and I'm not
I
planning
don't
on
have to
getting
get
it together.
I don't have to get yeah. That's funny. No, it's that's good to hear. It's good to hear that people actually have that motivation. Because that's the conception I've had. It's like we'll go through, like, certainly when I'm with my son, and my son's 16. I know he hears stuff at school. I'm not
Sure.
stupid, but at the same time, I don't want that to be what he hears all day, even when he comes home. So when he comes home, it's
Yeah.
like, how can you, we're flipping through Netflix, and I'm like, what is the rating? What is the rating? Like, I gotta be aware of my nephews are at the house, what's it gonna be? And it's so good. Um, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm losing his name. Um, was on SNL, really clean comic, doesn't even swear, I don't
Nate
think.
Bargatze?
Uh, yes,
Nate's
like that
fantastic.
dude makes me laugh so stinking hard every time I watch him. It's like, where are those guys?
Yeah.
How many are there?
I mean, you have to make the choice to do that type of work. And I think a lot of times the easier path is to say something a little bit shocking, a little bit dirtier. It requires a little harder work to not do that. And so I think a lot of people that will be that type of comedian start off not that type of comedian. And so,
Mhm.
giving them time, I tell you,
Maybe a maturity.
yeah, I was a very different person in my mid 20s, mid 30s than I am in my mid 40s.
Is there anything out there that's really unfunny that you want to make funny?
Oh gosh, death.
Yeah.
Yeah, death is scary, and I think that's a big part of what I want to do in my next hour is I want to talk about death in a way that makes people walk out of the room feeling hopeful. I had cancer earlier this year, and that was very scary for me. We also said goodbye to my father-in-law and my grandmother over the last year, and I sat in these hospice facilities watching people that are important to me slip away, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And watching the way that they passed away with grace and dignity, and seeing how they affected each other, and also seeing the way that like family members either did or did not take care of each other during those times. They were really,
Mm.
it really made me think a lot about, what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I mean, I was in that hospital after my surgery. I had colon cancer, and so they removed my entire large intestine. I don't have a large intestine anymore. I thought I was going to have a bag to go to the bathroom, and like it's interesting because people are like, "Oh, thank goodness you didn't have a bag." In that moment, I was like, "I want to live. I don't care if I have a bag." I'm
Mm.
not down on a bag. I'm up on living. So if that's what it's got
Right.
to be, that's what it's got to be. And my wife didn't flinch. There wasn't a moment where she was like, oh gosh, if he has a bag, do I want to stay? Like we in our minds, we start thinking of like, who's gonna want to love a man who has to go to the bathroom in a bag? She didn't care. She loved me and wanted me to live.
To
Um,
be real, that might be convenient.
right? I know.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a,
Road trips are
yeah, when
so
you're in
much
a
easier.
movie, yeah, when you're at the movies and the moments, you don't have to get up and go to the bathroom. You
Oh
just lay
yeah.
down. Right. You know,
I'm staying all 9 innings when I go to the ball game. It's fine.
that's right.
Um, but it I ended up luckily not having to have a bag, but they removed my entire large intestine, hooked everything else back up. But during the surgery, the surgeon they believe it was my spleen that he accidentally nicked, and there was a whole bunch of internal bleeding. I had major complications. I had a 2.5 foot what's called an NG tube up my nose and then down into my stomach. It was tremendously painful. For
Mm.
4 days, I couldn't eat or drink anything. I was just on an IV drip as we tried to drain the blood and bile out of my body and get me to heal. I had 5 blood transfusions, and I'm so thankful to anybody that's a blood donor because they saved my life. And then I made it out of the hospital. But like that time sitting in there, and also the full month between the cancer diagnosis and the surgery, like I did a lot of just thinking about life and what I wanted to do with what I had left, if I especially if we got rid of this cancer and I healed and I was able to uh, to have a longer life. Then I decided I really wanted to focus on creating joy for other people and making sure
Mm.
that my work wasn't about me. Um, but having gone through that, where death seems like a very real possibility, I think that we don't talk about it enough, and so I want to put together a show that's a big part of it.
Well, I will say when you made that very first initial Facebook post and when you wrote that, you don't know this. I never reached out on. I maybe think I might have made a comment or something, but like we had people here praying for you while you were going through that,
Well, I
and it was such an
appreciate that.
encouragement when we heard that everything was well. Because I just in again, I'm no longer a pastor, but some people still view me that way. They'll call me and
Yeah,
I'll
of
come and
course.
be with them because I just love people where they are. Um, it's such an encouragement to hear that when you get a bad diagnosis, that even though you're going through all of this hardship and this time, and you're doing this soul searching or whatever you want to call it, there is hope at the end.
Yeah,
There is like a real hope for people. And right now, there's this woman, or she won't care. Her name's Kim. She got diagnosed with cancer. They gave her the kind that said, "You're just managing your cancer.
yeah,
Like it's not going to go away."
that's so hard.
Um, yeah, and I just looked at her and I said, don't don't allow them to say that. That's not a true statement. Like they can say something is what they think's going to happen, but that's not always what's going to happen. And literally 2 days ago, they said her cancer's now going away.
Are you kidding me? That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And they're like, I guess we were wrong. And I was like, she was so positive. She's been positive. I mean, it's still there. She's still doing her chemo, but now instead of it just managing it, it's actually going away.
That's
And it's like,
fantastic.
And it was such good news. And I said, that's the encouragement people need. I think prayer is one thing, encouragement's another. I think they both work hand in hand. If you go into cancer feeling like it's over, it's going to be really hard. But when you know that there is a possibility, that there is a chance, and dude, our scientists, our medical people are amazing today. They're
Oh yeah,
incredible.
what is
You know,
possible blows my mind.
yeah,
And when you think about like what it used to be, heck, back when medicine first started, barbers were doctors and they would put leeches on you. And now,
yeah,
like we
yeah,
did, I mean, I went into this tube, I did a CT scan, and they found where I was bleeding. And they could actually check my hemoglobin levels. Like we literally take somebody's blood and have a machine examine it, and we were able to start seeing what is wrong with them and then know how to treat it. It blows my mind what medicine can do, and also what the human body is capable of doing, the way that it also sees problems and goes toward healing it. Um, I gotta say though, a positive mindset is such a major factor in you being able to do the things that will help to foster the healing. I never, for one moment, once I announced that diagnosis, felt like I was going through that alone. Your prayers, I had other people praying for me, this entire production team. I just finished a movie called Gingerbread Man. It's a Christmas movie. And that whole production team was like messaging me and texting me and saying, "We're all praying for you." And, my family, friends from all over, the amount of people that were reaching out, there was never a moment where I felt like I was walking through, the valley of the shadow of death. Not a
right,
moment. I
right.
felt like I was being lifted up and carried by everybody, and that felt pretty great.
That's amazing. Do you have, I don't want to keep you here all day, but do you have any final words for the people listening? I've got a nice little community that, and some of them know you.
Oh, great.
I I'm have you been in Enid, Oklahoma?
I have. I came and I taught
An
some
improv
workshops for
class.
Gaslight. Yeah, Charlotte Ringwald brought me in, and I
Yeah.
taught some improv workshops when they were doing the awesome '80s prom, and met a lot
Hmm.
of other people. And it was great meeting the theater community here. They were really awesome.
Because when I mentioned you, I didn't know you'd ever been to Enid. And people were like, "Yeah, I got to be in his class at something in Enid, Oklahoma." I was like, "He was here in Enid? I didn't know
Yeah,
you came in here." I
I'll
was like,
go
"That's pretty
anywhere.
cool."
Yeah,
So yeah, I was like, "That was pretty neat." Yeah, they're a good little. It's a good little community here.
that's great.
Do you have any final words? Are you going to be coming here anytime
Oh,
soon?
well, yeah, well, first off, we mentioned also when we were messaging back and forth, if you're interested in podcasts, I also have a podcast that I just started doing with my wife, and it's not something like career-wise that we're banking hopes on. Instead, it's become a fun thing for us to do every week that we get to spend an hour together just kind of chatting in the midst of our crazy lives, and we have a good, solid relationship, and I think that people hearing what works for us, what doesn't work for us. Um,
Mm.
it can just kind of feel like you're hanging out with a friend or with a couple that you're friends with. It's called Hot Cup with the Campbells. Search for that. We actually just released an episode where we talk about how we fight and the way that, like, if we have
Mm.
arguments, the way that we take care of each other um, while still getting our voice across. And it was kind of a vulnerable thing for us to share because that's part of the not pretty parts of your relationship. But
Right.
it's been a lot of fun to do. Um, and as far as just final words to people, I think we're a lot more alike than we realize. And as you go through your day, you never know what kind of struggle somebody else is dealing with. So keep that in mind and just be excellent to each other.
Wow.
We're all going through it in, in one way or another.
Well, dude, I'm so glad you're healthy. I'm glad everything's going good. Um, you continue your kindness and your comedy. I mean, I know you're a little edgy, but you're not like that, you know. I'm going to be a big supporter. Well, I will make sure that I send an invite to all of my people to come over, at least to go to your page or
Yeah,
your podcast page,
I
and
really appreciate it.
because I think you're doing good work, and also um, you're on the way up. Like you're going to be there. I believe that.
That
Um,
means a lot.
and you truly are funny. Um, keep doing what you're doing. Don't put it to the side. That's easy to do. I mean, I did that. I put things to the side because I
Sure.
was like, well, I've got a higher calling and this and that. I just put things to the side, but don't do that. You're on the right path. You're doing great work. I mean, heck, I think I saw you in a Super Bowl commercial. I think.
Yeah, yeah, it was me and Kristen
Yeah.
Chenoweth.
I mean, that's pretty awesome, dude. Like you're you're
Yeah, it was
you're
a lot
you're,
of
you're
fun.
getting it done. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here today. This is the comedian, Jamie Campbell.